Hi, how are you, Ryan?
Hello, how are you?
All right. It's so nice to meet. I guess, is this considered meeting each other?
There's some version of meeting going on, yes.
I'm delighted. When they proposed this, where they said, would you like to talk to Ryan Miller of Guster? And I was like, yeah, that would be. I was pretty excited, actually.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I've been a fan. It so happens. For years, have a number of albums, and so it was just a perfect opportunity.
Although you do know there is some film stuff in my life, right?
I do. In fact, I think I've seen.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I was going to get to that. This is a perfect synergy in that way because you've actually written.
Right.
We'll talk about those films too, as well as the new album. But did you score them, or was it? Did you write songs for those films?
No songs, all scoring.
Okay. Was that something that you had always wanted to do as a musician, or did it just sort of come about at some point? It was presented to you, and then you jumped at it.
Well, no, I think I had always sort of thought that, eventually I was going to have to find another job as a musician. I didn't really think that I was going to be able to spend my running around on the bus and playing music with my friends, and so there's always sort of a thought, I think, in every musician, touring musician, of, how it's going to work. How am I going to raise my family? And so I had sort of poked around early on I looked at sort of the commercial world and how does that work, and was sort of intimidated by that whole process because those guys were so good at what they did. And just sort of as a goof, my buddy and I wrote a movie. I don't know, I should figure out when this was. Probably like 5-6 years ago or something. And it was called Nobody, and it was independent finance. I just thought I wanted to music supervise it. I didn't even know what that meant. And then when I got into it, he was like, well, you should just score it. And I didn't know what that meant either. But I think I just kind of started doing it, and I had this kind of light bulb moment of, oh, wow, this is super fun. And maybe this is what I can do for the rest of my life. And ever since then, I sort of became very, aggressively going after this composer world and trying to get work and trying to learn how to do it. And, I had a really early success. I got really lucky with a film really early on, and it kind of helped launch my scoring career. Yeah, it wasn't really something I had always wanted to do, but once I figured out what it was and that I loved it, then it became something I was very aggressive about.
I could see why. And it's such a different, obviously, I would imagine, and I could be completely wrong. It's collaborative. They both are collaborative, right? Obviously, playing in a band is very collaborative, even if you're maybe the primary writer, I don't know. And then working on a film, you're doing a lot of that work, I don't know, maybe on your own and then presenting it. I'm sure each film might be different. Maybe each film is different.
The main difference is that in a film, it's a huge ego check because I'm not the boss anymore. In the band,
right?
Obvious. I'm not really the boss of my band. I have, collaborators and bandmates that I've been playing with, and I kind of have to go through them. But it's kind of our thing, and I get a big vote as sort of the lead singer. And in a film, it really has very little to do with what I think. I can sort of make a case for certain things, but it's I kind of give a speech before every job and say, just so you know, I get this. If you're not happy, I'm not happy. And you become much more of a craftsman, and you're in the service industry all of a sudden. So it's a completely different state. You're in a different, it's just a different way of sort of being an artist because you're in service of somebody else's vision rather than your own. That's basically what it boils down to.
But I imagine that also has its upside too. It must be a double-edged sword because then you're off the hook. There's got to be a lot of pressure being at least perceived as the front guy in a band. It's obviously not Ryan Miller and Guster by any stretch, but I don't know. I would imagine maybe that's part of the appeal for you to composing is that it's just you're for hire, as you said it yourself.
Yeah, it's not something it takes probably 3 years to make a movie. You got to write it, you got to find financing, you got to get your team together, you got to shoot it. You're in post forever, and so filmmakers don't get to make that many movies, but composers can do multiple movies a year. Some composers do multiple movies at once. So it's different in that sense. But, also we've been really lucky, and I've worked with a lot of great directors in a very short amount of time. My first film was, I scored my first real one ever was the Safety Not Guaranteed, which, kind of crushed at Sundance, and Colin just wrote and directed Jurassic World, which had the biggest opening of any movie in the history of man,
Yeah,
so
it's pretty amazing.
I have a relationship with Colin and Lake Bell, who did In the World, and Jordan Vogt Roberts, who did Kings of Summer, is now writing King Kong, and so I've been really lucky to work with some people really early in my career that are great relationships, and will keep doing great things.
Well, we have some friends in common then, because, well, first of all, Jordan was on this podcast with Kings of Summer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I interviewed him.
Oh, yeah.
We had a great time.
Oh, that's cool.
He's a sweet guy.
Yeah, he's awesome.
And also Todd Rohal.
Oh, yeah. That was a really fucked up one, though.
I know. I know.
That was a really bad situation.
Yeah, he was pretty scarred from that experience.
Yeah, he was and we kind of came in at the very end of that, and pretty much everything that could have gone wrong did on every level, and he's such a great guy, and that movie just it was a really good experience for me to kind of see the bad part of filmmaking. Like I said, I kind of got lucky with Safety, and I had a great experience on Kings of Summer with Jordan, and I had a really good experience with Lake, and then worked with, a lot of those were beachside movies. So when they put me on this, we basically had 2.5 weeks to do the score, Eric Johnson and I, and just kind of getting the sense of from Todd what was happening was like, oh my God, what a nightmare, dude. I'm so sorry, and I was trying to do what I was supposed to do, and also trying to make him happy, and it was, it was quick, and I learned a lot. But yeah, that's just it's so hard to make a movie, and that's one of those, it's easy to say that, but then it's like, oh, right, this is why it's hard. That was probably one of the most fucked up film situations I've ever, been part of.
Well, you'll be glad to know he's rebound, and he's fine. And are you familiar with BAM here in Brooklyn? Have you played at BAM?
Yeah, we've done something at BAM, and I've seen movies and stuff there.
Oh, very good. Because Todd's his new movie, which is this outrageous comedy called Uncle Kent 2, it's going to be at BAM Cinema Fest, which just started last night, and which is a very prestigious annual indie film showcase, taking kind of the best of the year there. And his new movie.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so he's in that. So I saw him at he was also, I just did a recent episode with him too. I keep promoting myself here. I apologize, but I guess what I would like. I would love it if you listen to a couple of those, maybe the one with Jordan and with Todd, and just to see what you think of that stuff. But
I'd love to hear Todd's take on it. And Jordan's hilarious too. I would definitely check this out.
Yeah, I never really put him on the record with that film, with that one we've been talking about, because I know he probably it would put him, may make him uncomfortable. But we had one long evening a couple of summers ago where he told me the horrid details and all that, Anyway, but to get back to your your music, I don't know who turned me on to Guster, but the whole sensibility, I like they're very catchy, good hooks. The vibe of the band is wonderful. Your songwriting is really good. And your voice. It's such a distinctive sound. Did you always sing? Or did you just kind of get, maybe you were the best singer in the group? How did you end up being a singer?
No, actually. I mean, it's funny, when we started out of our dorm rooms in 1991.
Did you all go to college together?
Yeah, we all went to school together in Boston at Tufts University. And
okay.
Adam, he had sort of come. He was the singer of his high school band, and he was already in the singing group at our school, which was, believe it or not, kind of a big deal. So he was always sort of going to be the singer, and then it just sort of so happened as we were writing and stuff, he was like, "Oh, you can sing. You should sing." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So it really started with him sort of being the guy, and then as sort of time developed, it just it turned into one of those things where I was writing a lot of the melodies. So when it'd be kind of hard to pass over. They're like, hey, sing these songs of mine, you know. So I ended up kind of becoming more of the singer over time. But no, it's not something I ever did. I was in a band in high school and never sang or anything like that. It came very late.
Were did you what did you, how early on did you learn guitar?
I guess I was playing. You know, I was playing instruments in junior high and high school, but I was never going to be a shredder, and I was never. You know, I was always in service of song, always. I never wanted to, you know. I took piano lessons, but I was also playing with, like, you know, my Apple IIe had a MIDI set up on it, so I was playing with keyboards really early on, and I was never going to be, like, a musician in terms of, like, oh, I can go jam. Like, I was never going to jam, and it was always kind of, for me, more about songwriting. So I was focused on that really early on.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Texas,
okay.
in Dallas.
Were your parents into music? Did you grow up in a house with music playing a lot? And
no, but I was an only child, and I was sort of like indulged, you know. So when I wanted to get a guitar or a keyboard, they were kind of that stuff was sort of there for me. But I think my grandma might have had some musical stuff in her. But it was never, you know, I didn't grow up with it like, you know, I grew up with records around and stuff and was really into music from a really young age, but not sort of from my parents.
What did you go to, what part of Texas?
In Dallas.
Oh, Dallas. Maybe you said that. I'm sorry. And then did you have, like, I don't know, did you first get interested in college radio? Was that really kind of the first?
No, actually, it kind of got me. I mean, I was really listening to shitty metal, like, way longer than it was fashionable. I remember, like, the kids were like, man, everybody else listens to bullshit. We're listening to Motley Crue still. So, like, I just had really bad taste and no other older brother. And the thing that kind of saved my life was Dallas had one of the first alternative radio stations in the country. So they were one of the first, you know, stations to play The Cure and The Smiths and New Order and Depeche Mode, and so that was sort of when I first started listening to music, you know, of any note. And then when I got to college, I had to play catch up because I had never listened to, you know, the Velvet Underground or the Beach Boys or the Beatles or Marvin Gaye or really anything. You know, I didn't have much of I just didn't know much about music going in. I knew a lot about alternative music, and that was pretty much it. So, you know, it has a lot to do with why our first records, I feel like, were sort of less good than our other ones. I just didn't know that much about, you know, songwriting at that point.
Makes sense. And then you guys, you said you all met at Tufts, right? And then were you just starting to perform locally? I mean, what was the transition to becoming a recording and touring band? How long did that transition take?
Well, it was pretty much like college was basically functioned as training wheels for the band. You know, we got started, we met really early in college, like first day of school, and we kind of formed this half-ass band really early on, and, you know, made a record with a local producer, you know, our junior year. So by the time we graduated, and that whole time we would start playing on campus, and then we played our first ever off-campus party at Harvard, and then we played at a shitty bar in Harvard Square, and then we started playing the Paradise, and so it was just a very organic, you know, we were playing on the streets of Boston, like kind of with our guitar cases out, you know, like busking for a long time. Yeah, that was a huge part of us kind of learning how to play, and it just kind of started like that. And sitting in Boston ended up being really fortuitous because it was one of those things where kids would go to school in Boston and then go home for the summer and bring our music with them, and kind of like seeded like, oh, these guys live in New Jersey, but they were going to school in Boston, and they live in Chicago. So it really kind of emanated out from the Boston college situation.
Mm-hmm.
So we just kind of, you know, we played we just basically got in a van after we graduated and started touring and sleeping on people's couches and, trying to make fans sort of one at a time. And that's
so you were booking, initially you booked yourself?
Yeah, everything we booked ourselves. We didn't have a record label. We didn't have a real manager. We didn't have anything. We didn't have a lawyer. We just basically, we just kind of got in the van and started touring and kind of got looped in with the jam band scene because we were playing at the same clubs, even though we didn't know how to jam and we weren't really improvising. And then, things started, and at some point we were, selling out Irving Plaza in New York City, and I think that's kind of when the record labels started paying attention, and then that's kind of when we got our manager, who was a buddy of ours, and the whole thing kind of all came out of the touring situation.
Wow. It sounds like such a earnest and organic, as you use that word, applies. It's like there's this, it's such a positive sounding story. It's like, four guys who just earnestly want to make good music together, work hard, get discovered, and then become a popular, label signed band.
Yeah, this was all all pre-internet too. We didn't have email addresses, we didn't have mobile phones, so we were, when I say DIY, it was, very much us printing out newsletters on our dot matrix printer, and it was very much a really like kind of, not that it was like tough times or anything, but it was definitely a lot of the stuff that makes that stuff a lot easier today just didn't exist for us.
Yeah, well, the grassroots. It was grassroots.
Yeah.
Where did the name Guster come from? How did you choose the name Guster? I love learning all this stuff.
I don't actually. We were called Gus, and then we just needed a name, and I didn't know I was going to be 42, still playing in the same band with that dumb name.
I like it though. People ask me the same question. The name of my show is Filmwax Radio. And people say, "Where did Filmwax?" I had to make up an idea after. I just came up with it arbitrarily. It just there's no exciting backstory, I'm afraid, either.
Yeah, usually I just lie and I make up a new story every time.
Exactly. Yes. Well, let's get to just mention a couple of things that are coming up. By the way, you're going to be playing Summerstage here in New York anyway, even though people all over, I hope, are listening. You'll play Summerstage on July 20th. And
yeah.
I would love to. I got to come. As much as I've listened to your albums, including, by the way, the new one, which is called Evermotion. Right?
Evermotion.
But I've never seen you guys play live. And all those sold-out shows at Irving Plaza. I even lived down the block on 15th Street, and I didn't see you guys.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. So,
where do you live, on 16th Street?
Yeah, so I lived on East 15th Street right by Union Square for years. And so I would go to Irving Plaza all the time.
Yeah, that was my first apartment in New York, was on 17th and 2nd.
Oh, really? So we were like neighbors. Yeah. What years was that? Can I ask?
We were almost neighbors. That was 90. I was only in that apartment from probably 99 to 2000.
Yeah, exact same period of time. I lived on 15th and 3rd Avenue, right by that Con Ed building.
Yeah.
From 93 to 2000. Yeah, like 7-8 years, right there, right around the corner from you.
Wow, you were living in New York in 93, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was. Cool. I moved into Manhattan. I was living in Brooklyn before that, but I lived in Manhattan from like 92 till about 2002 or 3. I forget exactly.
Wow. I always have fantasies of that era of the late 80s of, that I think I just missed where it was like Alphabet City, and it was like a lot of like some of the squats and all that. So I'm very fascinated with that era of New York.
Yeah, no, I am. I know there's a kind of a romance or a mythology around the more, grungier days of the East Village and the whole scene, and it was such an underground art scene there for so many years, right?
Yeah, and I especially now sort of seeing what happened to New York, even just on my watch, and how pricey and how much it's changed. And I'm not going to sit here and say it was better. Like New York has been a dynamic animal since its inception, but it just seems like that was it was a really interesting era, and so much cool stuff came out of that time. And obviously there was murderers, and it wasn't all sunshines and happiness, but it seems like a really interesting time to be there. Nothing
The
else.
murderers, though, were hipper than they are now.
Yeah.
No. But the thing, like even earlier today, Ryan, I was over on the Bowery. I met with this filmmaker James Ponsoldt, who maybe you know about. He has a new movie.
Oh, I know James.
Yeah, he's a really sweet guy, isn't he?
Great guy.
Yeah,
Great guy.
he's got this new movie called The End of the Tour, which is in the same festival that Todd's film is in. He opened it. So I met with him today for the podcast, and the movie is actually coming out at the end of July, but, he was in town, so I got to talk to him. And it was at the Bowery Hotel, and it's like, going to just referring to what you just said, the idea of like in this place are these really wealthy people hanging out. And no offense, good for them. Don't get me wrong; it's nothing to do with that. But it's more just the geography that I'm referring to, like the idea that people are buying these $10 lattes on the same street where, like you said, in the '80s, whereas kind of pretty questionable area. I mean, it was the Bowery.
Yeah, I mean, the Bowery stuff is really interesting, obviously, because the CD thing is like steps away from Bowery Hotel. But then even now with the Bushwick and the way that things are sort of, that rents for storefronts and like Bushwick are more than the Lower East Side, and how quickly the Williamsburg thing happened. It's so fascinating to me, and as someone that actually really got pushed out in New York. I mean, I was living in Cobble Hill with my wife, and we had a second kid, and we were like, we couldn't afford a 3-bedroom. We literally were just like, okay, well then we got priced out in New York in this very real way. And obviously you can make it happen, but it was just like, it isn't going to happen in a way that is going to work for us. So it's been interesting, and sort of watching, all of my sort of generation and my friends, the ones that have managed to stay and the ones that have to camp for the burbs or some fucked up place like Vermont, like me, or LA or something. So it's, it's really, really interesting to me, and it was such a huge part of my life, and it becomes less so more and more, especially with the film stuff really centered in LA. I spend so much of my time there now that I'm not on the road. But yeah, it's really interesting to me. It's been a really interesting time to have a bear witness to New York's transitions.
Wow, I didn't realize that was such a substantial part of your adult life, New York. But...
Yeah, I mean, we were living in Boston together in a house, and then, I guess it was when we were like in our mid to late 20s, we all moved to New York, and, I was there for 12 years, and that was, through your 30s is pretty substantial, it's a pretty big chunk of who, who you are and who you've become and all that. Yeah,
absolutely.
It was a really great place to be, though. Really fantastic, and I'm sure it's still a great place to be in a lot of ways. It's just
it is
much different.
It is, but like you, I got priced. But like you, I got priced out. I just haven't left yet. That's the problem.
Yeah, I know. I know those people too. There's people that can hang on, but I didn't have a partner. You have to have two people that are really going to do it. And my wife, New York will eat you if you're not ready to fight it. If you don't have your dukes up, it'll just completely demolish you. And my wife just didn't have that fight in her. Just wasn't interested. So that was a lost battle from the beginning.
And where are you guys based now?
I live in Vermont.
I thought I heard you say that. Where about?
Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah, it's not a usual thing. My wife's from here, and I had sort of advocated for Austin or Asheville or Nashville or LA or Portland, but she kind of had her sights set on this, and I'm gone so much that I felt like it wasn't going to be right for me to sort of force her to be somewhere where she didn't want to be. And so it's worked out really well, though. It's beautiful here, and there's a good community, and it's really easy, and I can still leave a bunch and get the things that I need to get.
Well, can I ask what part of Vermont are you guys in? What part?
Yeah, I'm in just outside of Burlington.
Sure. I spent many summers up there in that area, going at the summer camp that I worked at. Yeah, beautiful.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's a beautiful place.
Well, listen, maybe I can somehow get into this concert over at Summerstage next month. I would love to see you guys play.
Yeah, please.
I know you're headed towards Michigan. Wow, tomorrow for the Traverse City
tomorrow.
Yeah, by the time this is up, it'll probably be after the fact. But you're on tour, and you'll be in New York at least on July 20th at the Summerstage with Kishibashi opening act. I see. She's touring with you guys. Very good. Okay. I will.
Yeah.
I'll put a link to the whole schedule so people can find out where you know. And
Awesome.
and I listened to the album. You know, again, it's on my iPhone, and where it will probably remain for quite a bit of time. So
Awesome.
So please keep making albums.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, so far so good. This one felt like we could do another if we want to. So we'll see how it goes.
I'll put some music on this episode so people can hear little clips from some of the new songs. And
awesome.
All right, terrific. Thanks so much, man.
Absolutely. You have a great day. Thanks for talking to me.
Oh, thank you.